In the fast-moving world of pop music, timing is everything. Trends come and go, and you gotta ride the wave at the perfect time. In this video, we look at 8 singles that came after the trend died and flopped. Tonight I'm Getting Over You by Carly Rae Jepsen. Carly Rae Jepsen followed up her massive 2012 breakout Call Me Maybe with Tonight I'm Getting Over You, released as a full single from her album Kiss in early 2013. The track leaned heavily into the booming EDM pop sound that had dominated the charts in the early 2010s, featuring big synth drops and high-energy dance production. It was cleverly designed to ride the wave. It even received a high-profile remix featuring Nicki Minaj. By February 2013, however, the aggressive EDM pop trend that had flooded mainstream radio was already dying out. The genre had reached its peak, with audiences growing tired of formulaic drops. Tonight I'm Getting Over You arrived just as the sound was transitioning towards softer tropical house. Commercially, the single underperformed significantly. It only peaked at number 90 on the Billboard Hot 100, failing to replicate even half the success of Call Me Maybe. While Carly delivered strong vocals and an upbeat breakup anthem, it was widely seen as a missed opportunity that couldn't really sustain her mainstream momentum. Get by Ice Spice and Latto. Get was released in September 2025 as a collaboration between Ice Spice and Latto. The title was directly taken from the slang term, which is used to comment on a woman's large ass. The word had exploded in popularity in 2022 and early 2023, largely thanks to Twitch streamer Your Age and viral TikTok clips featuring Kesha. By late 2025, however, Get had become dated. It was already cringe and overused by the same internet culture that once pushed it. The song was announced as the duo's first collaboration after they squashed their long-standing beef. Ice Spice and Latto even appeared on Kesha's livestream to premiere the official video and promote the track, hoping the streamer's massive audience would spark virality. Despite the high-profile push, Get failed to make any impact. It did not debut or peak on the Billboard Hot 100 at all, becoming a quick punchline online, and was forgotten in quick time. Many listeners pointed out that they were trying to capitalize on slang that had already run its course, making the song sound desperate rather than clever. It shows the dangers of jumping on internet meme trends too late. What might have worked as a fun, timely track in 2022 came across cringeworthy in 2025. The collaboration between the two rappers, considering their history, should have been a guaranteed hit, but the poor timing and awful sound made it into one of the most noticeable flops of the year. Team by Iggy Azalea. By 2016, the sparse West Coast sound, pioneered by DJ Mustard, had already reached its saturation point. The sound, characterized by minimal 808s, hand claps, and bouncy hi-hats, exploded in 2013 and 2014 with hits like Tyga's Rack City and Kid Ink's Show Me. By mid-2015, the trend had largely started dying out. Iggy Azalea, riding high off the massive success of Fancy and Black Widow in 2014, attempted to recreate that early magic with Team. Released on March 18, 2016 as the lead single from her planned second album, it leaned heavily into the same stripped-back bouncy production she had success with earlier, complete with a simple hook and braggadocious lyrics.
Out here, pronto. Hit 'em with a dope set.
However, the song arrived nearly 2 years after the peak of that sound. Critics immediately noted how dated it felt in a rap landscape dominated by artists like Drake, Future, and Ray Shremmerd. The song only peaked at number 42 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming her first lead single to miss the top 40 since her breakthrough. It also failed to generate significant streaming or radio traction. The commercial disappointment of Team marked a turning point in Iggy Azalea's career. It showed that you shouldn't cling on to one sound for long, especially to a fading trend. The single's failure contributed to the delay and eventual cancelling of her second album. It then damaged her momentum and reinforced the narrative that she was falling off. Crazy Kids by Kesha. Kesha built her early career on wild party anthems with that electropop sound and heavy auto-tune. By 2012 and 2013, that maximalist trashy party sound, popularized by hits like TikTok and We Are Who We Are, had begun to lose steam as pop shifted towards slicker EDM pop and mid-tempo records. Kesha attempted to recapture her signature energy with Crazy Kids, released on April 30, 2013 as the second single from her album Warrior. The song featured a hyper electronic beat with heavy synths and a bad guest appearance from will.i.am, doubling down on the party pop formula that defined her earlier work. However, by spring 2013, the cultural appetite for that over-the-top electro sound had significantly cooled. Crazy Kids peaked at a disappointing number 40 on the Billboard Hot 100, her lowest charting mainstream single to that point, and quickly faded from the conversation. The underperformance of Crazy Kids signaled the beginning of a difficult period for Kesha. It failed to generate the same cultural buzz as her earlier smashes and contributed to Warrior being viewed as a commercial step down. Gorgeous by Doja Cat. Doja Cat released Gorgeous in 2025 as the second single from her album V. The song leaned heavily into retro 80s inspired pop, with rap verses replicating the glossy excess of that decade. At the time of its release, the 80s revival wave, which had been fueled by artists like The Weeknd, Dua Lipa, and Doja herself, was already losing steam. The cultural conversation had moved on, and doubling down on the fading 80s trend on the entire album felt like a miscalculation. Commercially, Gorgeous underperformed dramatically. It debuted at number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100 when the album dropped and disappeared from the charts after that week. The song failed to generate meaningful streaming longevity or radio support, and the parent album V also fell short of expectations, despite Doja's star power. Critics and fans noted that while the production was slick and Doja's delivery was sharp, the song felt dated. In the end, Gorgeous became a textbook case of an artist arriving too late to a trend they helped popularize. Doja's attempt to recreate a specific era was commendable, but it ultimately failed. Hot Uptown by Cabello featuring Drake. Camila Cabello recruited Drake for Hot Uptown, the fourth single from her album XOXO, which was released in 2024. The song leaned into a dancehall-influenced pop sound, with Drake's signature melodic rap singing style. This sound had been massively successful for Drake in the mid-2010s, with projects like Views and More Life, and it helped launch several pop stars during that era. By 2024, however, dancehall pop had long since faded from the mainstream. The genre's peak moment was nearly a decade old, and audiences had moved on to other global sounds. The timing could not have been worse for Drake. Hot Uptown dropped shortly after his very public and humiliating loss to Kendrick in their 2014 rap beef. Drake's cultural stock was at one of its lowest points in years, making his feature feel more like a liability than an asset. The single debuted at number 62 on the Billboard Hot 100, but plummeted off the chart just after 1 week, becoming one of the weakest performing singles for both artists. Camila's attempt to recapture the mid-2010s dancehall energy felt nostalgic in the worst way, while Drake's involvement only amplified the perception that both artists were clinging to past glory. Not Myself Tonight by Christina Aguilera. By 2010, the high-energy electro-pop, often called the recession pop trend, which defined the late 2000s, was losing steam. The sound, characterized by heavy synths, club beats, and party anthems, had peaked between 2008 and 2009, with massive breakout hits from Lady Gaga and Katy Perry. By early 2010, the genre felt oversaturated. Christina Aguilera, coming off the more mature Back to Basics era, made a bold pivot with her album Bionic, embracing dark electropop and experimental production. Not Myself Tonight was released as a lead single on April 6, 2010, leaning into bouncy synth-driven beats and a BDSM-themed music video featuring leather, chains, and provocative choreography. The song aimed to reposition Christina as edgy, but it arrived after the trend's peak had passed. Commercially, It debuted on number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100, a respectable start, but quickly lost momentum but fell off the charts after just 2 months. The ambitious Bionic album itself suffered from mixed reception and modest sales, partly because the lead single did not generate enough momentum. Not Myself Tonight remains a textbook case of a high-profile artist taking a huge risk. Sacrifice by The Weeknd. The Weeknd had massive success with its 80s inspired sound on After Hours. Songs like Blinding Lights and Save Your Tears turned retro synth pop into mainstream gold, dominating the charts and radio for 2 years straight. When he released Sacrifice as a second single from Dawn FM in January 2022, he clearly wanted to keep milking that nostalgic 80s wave. The track featured funky bass lines, doubling down on the retro aesthetic that had worked so well before. Unfortunately, by early 2022, the 80s revival trend had already reached its saturation point. The public had moved on to other sounds. Sacrifice didn't feel like a fresh evolution. It peaked at only number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100, significantly lower than his earlier singles, and quickly faded from the charts. People were getting tired of the polished sound, and the song lacked the catchiness and surprise factor of hits like Blinding Lights. Many fans felt The Weeknd was playing it too safe, recycling the same sound, without bringing anything new to the table. The single's underperformance contributed to Dawn FM being seen as a commercial flop compared to After Hours. Even though the album itself was critically well received, Sacrifice became a textbook case of an artist staying too long at the party. The Weeknd's attempt to extend his winning 80s formula showed how quickly trends can expire in the streaming era. Which singles that came after the trend died did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.